In my opinion, the Great Plateau is the best video game tutorial ever. The definition of a tutorial is to help you learn the game and its mechanics, and the Great Plateau does that very well. The first level in games can play a pivotal role in deciding whether or not you want to play the game. After one level you might decide this isn't for me and never play the game again. Or you might love the game and want to play more of it just because of the first level. I think the reason so many players liked Breath of the Wild is because of this reason. The Great Plateau is just so good. For starters, you get a serious amount of freedom in this game. There's a lot of places you can go. You can go anywhere you want as long as you're prepared for it. And it's all up to you, it's not up to the game. From the moment you get out of the Shrine of Resurrection, you're free to go wherever you want. But what's stopping you is the fact that the Great Plateau is a plateau, and you can't jump off. It's a logical reason for a logical problem. And it's not just the game setting invisible walls where you can and cannot go. Now the game has a sense of direction, of course. It does encourage you to go to certain places, but you can really go anywhere you feel like, as long as you can traverse it. For example, you can do all 4 shrines in any order you want, in any path you want. There isn't a correct way of finding the shrine. As long as you get there, you're rewarded by runes. And there's a whole bunch of stuff on the Great Plateau that is optional if you just don't want to do it, like enemy camps and Koroks, and there's even a talus that you don't have to fight, but it's on the Great Plateau if you just happen to stumble across it. A good example of optional stuff is the warm doublet, or doublé. I don't actually know how to pronounce it. But in my first playthrough, I didn't actually get this until I found it at a shop at Tino Village. I didn't even know it was a thing on the Great Plateau. That's because you don't need it to traverse the cold areas. You can just cook something up with your chili, peppers, and mushrooms, and bam, you can survive the cold for a short while. But if you take the time to explore this old house, you'll find the recipe, or like half the recipe, for the special dish that the old man makes. And if you give it to him, he'll give you the warm doublet, which helps you survive in the cold forever, as long as it's not too cold. I love this because it's something that the game doesn't tell you until you find it for yourself. You're doing all the discoveries on your own. The game isn't telling you what you can and cannot do. An example I think we all know is the cooking mechanic. The game does not tell you how to cook. I mean, it kind of does in the form of the old man, but who really talked to the old man anyway? You kind of just have to figure it out on your own. I know most of us struggled with this, and I really love the way the game does this. There are pots lying around, and you think you might be able to cook something in them, but you can't. There's no thing saying you can cook beside it or anything. And then you see that there's a fire over here. You just put the fire under the pot and you can cook. And I know it might sound simple for someone who hasn't played the game before, but it's super rewarding when you actually figure something out on your own, something very important to the game. And with the ability to cook, you can cook your spicy dishes and not have to use the warm doublet, and you can go into the frozen area and get the last shrine you need. It feels like everything is under your control. And an inverse of this is that it feels like it's your fault when you do something wrong. It doesn't feel like the game wronged you by unjustly punishing you for exploring something you shouldn't have had. It feels like you were experimenting with something, an experiment went wrong, and it went wrong because it was your fault. Every death mostly feels justified. I mean, there are a few bad deaths, but for the most part, the game is super reasonable. Anytime you get set on fire, or take damage, or even die, it feels justified. This is because the game is teaching you without telling you how to play, which is how a tutorial should be. Like I said earlier, the only thing stopping you from going places isn't an invisible wall, but your skill. For example, there's a guardian by the shrine. In fact, there's many guardians. They're the ones on the ground that can't move, thank goodness, because the ones with legs are way too difficult just for the first area. But they can insta-kill you, and you might have trouble getting to the shrine. An experienced player will know to parry the laser beam back at the guardian. It still can feel very scary to have a guardian shoot its laser at you, but it does feel super rewarding when you get to parry it back. But the guardian is guarding the shrine, so you gotta make it past somehow. Again, referring back to the snow area, you can't travel here because it's too cold. So you gotta make a spicy dish or get the warm doublet to travel here. It takes knowledge and skill. It doesn't just take blindly going through any area you see, because there will be punishment for stuff that is wrong. And the Great Plateau is super rewarding. It gives you more powerful weapons as you play with the clubs and shields and bows, and it gives you, not to mention the runes from the shrines, which are super helpful most of the time, and not to mention you get the paraglider out of it, which is super awesome now that you can like go anywhere basically with the paraglider. It sets you up perfectly for your adventure, and I love that. And that's why the Great Plateau is a masterpiece.